So thank you all very much for being here today. Before we get started into the sort of the core information about Safe Zone, I wanted to turn your attention to the ETSU campus climate sheet that was hopefully on your seat before you sat. And I wanted to start with this. This is a scale that I commonly use in my own faculty research program to really understand what it is that people are experiencing on campus. And so this campus climate scale is asking you to think about and feel into what your experience or what you think the experience is of LGBTQ people on this campus, ranging from 0, not at all accepting or welcoming, all the way up to 100, which would be, exceptionally warm, exceptionally welcoming. So I've asked this to faculty, staff, and students across campus, and I get varying answers. So I wanted to engage you in a conversation, brief one, just to get a sense of where you think or where you feel ETSU is on this scale. So feel free to shout out a number, feel free to elaborate, just we'll take a couple of minutes to do that.
Well, I think when I work in the Department of Art and Design,
yes.
It's a very interesting environment for LGBT people, and we have almost a third of our faculty now would identify that way. However, it's kind of, and most of my students are in the art department, so it's sort of, I'm curious to know outside of the art department, but in the art department, it's sort of, before I moved here, sort of wondered what that environment was like. It's incredibly, warm and inclusive and impressive.
Thank you.
I feel the same way about the Department of Communication performance. It's very open and accepting. I just don't know what it's really like out on the campus with students.
Okay. So far, no one's venturing to guess a number. Okay. Okay.
I like how well the counseling department at ETSU, counseling center, and the different clubs we have, for transgender people to kind of come together, or if you're gay or something like that. I like all the different resources there are on campus, and then I like just the general social climate. People, even if someone doesn't agree or something like that, they'll kind of just be loving and accepting anyway.
Okay.
So I think the number's going to be between 0 and 50. I'm going to guess that. It may not be open hostility, but I think for a lot of people, it doesn't appear on their radar to consider that the person I'm talking to may not be like me. So that for me as a heterosexual cisgender woman, that I may unthinkingly ask a new colleague, assuming that they are partnered with somebody, and assume that they're heterosexual, and may step in it with them, making them uncomfortable, and doing it in a way that on the surface looks like I'm trying to be friendly, but because it didn't occur to me that they may not be like me, they may not feel that it's the same as friendly. You may feel like it's a bit of, is there room in my world, room in your world for me, and I don't know yet, it's too soon to tell. So it may not be open hostility, but I don't think it necessarily feels warm to everybody.
Okay, so we're getting a range of responses from, my department's really accepting to 80 for the whole campus, really warm, and then maybe on the lower end, 0 to 50.
Well, I was just going to say, I am in your department, so I
Okay.
As a student, I would say pretty near 100 from my experience. There is the outlier of we have the preachers on campus who don't mind In my personal circles, I have a lot of different friends from a lot of different places. We have had a lot of people through the course of their time here come out and start accepting themselves, which was very important for them. And when they came out to us as a group, it was either a reaction of, cool, that's who you are, we accept that. And other times we were celebratory of it. I would say as a student and in my personal experience and the experience of my friends, you could not have a more accepting place that I've been to.
Okay. Yes.
I would put it at sort of 50 neutral, but it really depends on what part of the LGBT plus group that you're in.
Okay.
I have a distinct memory of, I participated in pre as a student
Uh-huh.
coming through this fall, and I remember that before the skit that the leaders put on, that one of the counselors was talking, and they mentioned that there's a trans support group, and the entire freshman crowd just sort of like, oh, like, ooh, trans people, what is this? And it was sort of a wave of that, and that's a very distinct memory. Oh, this is the Sabbath, but not the Midwest I'm used to. And so there is definitely a counterpoint to the very accepting group that there is, again, an ignorance, I think, that may be accidental, but it's definitely a weight that is not to be ignored.
Mm.
Because ignorant people are accidentally unacceptable.
Okay. Thank you all for sharing your thoughts and feelings about campus. Just briefly, what I have been finding in my research so far is that the answer to this question really depends, and it typically, I'm finding, is depending on identity, so that individuals who identify in the LGBTQ community report a less welcoming community than people who are in the majority, so the heterosexual, cisgender individuals. And so just to illustrate that, trans-identified individuals reported climate in the 30s, and bisexual men reported climate in the 40s, and the heterosexual or cisgender counterparts reported that they thought it was warmer than that or more welcoming, at least 10 degrees, speaking on a temperature gauge, warmer. So I think that is something to note that, and that goes to something that you spoke to earlier. So we're seeing a wide range in terms of not only climate estimate, but also based on who's reporting it. So the LGBTQ community is reporting it as chillier, and to be in the 30s, I mean, likening that to a temperature gauge, that's pretty cold. So something to keep in mind, and certainly something that we like to think about as safe zone organizers and the reason that we want to do this program. So let's get a little more into that. What is Safe Zone? So Safe Zone is really this effort to develop a community of allies. So we have trainings where we want to really get education out there to develop this community so that LGBTQ people know where to go to feel safe and talk to somebody. So at the end of our trainings, individuals sign or have the option to sign a pledge, which one of the results of that is to put their name and office number on our website so that people actually physically know where to go for an ally. When we think about allies, it's really someone that actually supports the LGBTQ community. And this can be through a variety of ways. And so I'm really curious if there might be a couple of you willing to give some examples of what are ally behaviors. What is an ally?
I would say one characteristic is an individual who intentionally tries to learn more about your experience or tries to learn more about how you're navigating through a community.
Okay, so learning and open to learning. Great. Yes.
I would say the example is in the case of having, knowing someone or being close to someone who is trans, who's a preferred pronouns.
So using preferred pronouns for individuals across the board. Asking what pronouns are. And for me, that word preferred may be questionable because they're actually someone's pronoun. It's not necessarily that they just have a preference about it. So something that I take maybe a step further.
Ditching heteronormativity, as was mentioned, so just kind of being open to diverse answers.
Good point.
So with their consent, when having conversations with other people, normal conversations of what was your holiday like and who did you see, with the consent of my relatives, talking about my sister-in-law who is lesbian and her wife and their children, and presenting that as part of a normal family, that the person I'm speaking to knows something else about me that they didn't know before, and they see how I talk about her with love, and they take that in. So they may or may not have a friend or a family member who is also in the LGBT community, but now they know something else about me, and it's a way of planting a seed for them that they can talk about it if they do, or they can ask questions if they don't, or they can just see that it sounds so cookie. People are people, and we all have families, and it's just all part of who we are.
Yeah, so finding ways to infuse normative experience into everyday conversation. So those are some great examples, and typically we tend to think about allies as falling within 4 areas or ally behaviors. 1 is knowledge, 2 is awareness, 3 skills, and 4 action. And we generally in our trainings describe these as falling along a continuum. You know, not everyone is going to be comfortable going out and being an activist or protesting or whatever that might be, or being more visible, whereas you can be an ally and be someone that people can still feel comfortable coming to your office and talking with you, for instance. But one thing I do want to emphasize that over time I've come to realize is it's not just about awareness, that we really need to couple awareness with some kind of behavior so that the right people, the LGBTQ community people, know that we're out there, know that you're out there. And so that is only visible through some sort of behavior, whether it's just a sticker on your door, or whether you attend various groups of the LGBTQ community, if you have these conversations, so somehow incorporating behavior.
So I'd like to give you a very brief history of ETSU and Safe Zone. We have Dr. Pat Robinson to thank for the program, which she developed and started in the 1990s. My understanding is she didn't really ask anybody, she just did it. And it was a different time then. There were a lot more challenges, and we've come a long way. That's not to say we don't have somewhat distance to go, but I want to acknowledge Dr. Robertson. I took the training with her in 1998-99 when I came to ETSU, and I displayed the symbol on my door, and I was very proud to have done that. About 10 years later, a little over 10 years later, 12 years later, in my own development as being an ally, I decided I would like to help with the program. I hadn't heard much about it. So I contacted Dr. Robertson and said, you know, I'd like to come and talk to you about Safe Zone. And I did, and I went and I said, I'd really like to help. And she said, well, I'm about to retire and I need somebody to take over the program. Was not quite what I had in mind. And so I asked her if she would just let me go away and think about it. And I got back to my office and I called Stacey. And I said, Stacey, I've got a project for you. Would you like to join me? And I'm very grateful that she did. So we spent a year, basically, or at least a semester, looking at the program as it had existed and updating it and deciding what we wanted to do. And we came out with our first training. And we realized, because we based our first training very much on what had been done, and we realized that some of the material was fabulous and great, And some of it ETSU had outgrown. We had a video that was clearly out of date. It had been made by early on in the process, and the people who were speaking on that video, faculty and staff who were afraid to lose their jobs by speaking on the video. And we have moved to a place where ETSU had specified that it would not discriminate against people. So we felt that some things needed to be changed, and we have slowly, over the time that we've been working with SafeZone, changed the training little by little. You will still recognize, any of you that did the training with Dr. Robertson, you'll still recognize some of the key elements. But it's been a wonderful, certainly for me, a wonderful learning experience to be able to be involved in this whole process of devising and updating the training. And then with getting facilitators together, we've trained hundreds of people. We've trained people to become facilitators, because very soon we realized that the demand was far more than the two of us could keep up with giving trainings. So that's sort of the history of where we came from and where we are today. So what are our purpose and goals of this training? This was something that right at the start, Stacey and I decided we wanted to be able to enumerate and talk about. So initially, we want to be able to promote an acceptance and awareness of diversity, of gender identity and sexual identity, sexual orientation. We also, as we've said, want to provide a community of allies for LGBTQ people on campus. And that's, we often think about just students, but that's also faculty and staff and anybody else who's associated with campus. And finally, in our little list, to provide evidence of and visibility for the support of LGBTQ people and their allies within the ETSQ community. So visibility is very important in this whole process to us. Now, Stacey had mentioned a pledge. We have a SafeZone pledge, which is at the end of a training. Anybody who's done the training has the option of signing the pledge and becoming a member of SafeZone. The pledge is 10 points to it, and the basic premise is that you're going to fight anti-LGBTQ bias in the classroom and the wider community, that you will be an ally and an advocate, and that you will be visible. It's broken down into 10 points. If you're interested, you can go onto the SafeZone website, which you'll find under Equity and Diversity, and there you will see the whole SafeZone pledge. So you can see what these people have signed their name to and said, yes, I agree with this. So I'm going to hand over to Stacey now, and she has something else for us to think about.
So one of the components of our SafeZone trainings include some activities. So giving people the opportunity to experience and to put themselves in the position of an LGBTQ person. We're not going to do any of the activities that are listed usually in our training, but I wanted to give you all the opportunity to have some experience today. And so I am going to ask that you break off into dyads. So each of you, please find a partner to partner off with. This is going to be a very brief exercise. You won't be put on the spot to the whole group. You'll just be talking between yourselves. So just take a minute and find a partner. Okay. All right, so it looks like everyone is in a dyad. Thank you for that. So our first objective is to figure out who is speaker one and who is speaker two. So which of you, of the two of you, has the birthday that's earliest in the year? Okay. So you found the earlier birthday, so the latter birthday will be speaker number one. Just to mix it up. Okay, so I'm going to read these directions verbatim. So speaker number 1, please tell your talking partner for 1 minute, uninterrupted, about one or more ways in which you have had unearned disadvantage in your life. You did not ask for it, it was circumstantial, but in some ways it has made your life harder. It is not a matter of blame, shame, or guilt. You didn't invent the systems you were born into. You did not invent your disadvantages. They are not your fault, but in some ways they have given you difficulty. Your disadvantage may have to do with your place in the birth order of your family or whether you were the sex of child your parents wanted. Your disadvantage may come from your parents' relation to money or to education, what language you spoke at home, your neighborhood, your gender, ethnicity, race, religion, sexual orientation, physical appearance, stereotypes about your family, your physical coordination, your handedness. Were you left-handed? What else is there that gave you some unearned disadvantage? Please tell your partner about one or more of these things that have arbitrarily set you back and made your life harder through no fault of your own. Whatever you say is for your partner alone, not to be repeated to anyone else. And I am going to time you, and you have exactly 60 seconds. So wait, I will tell you when to start. I hear some whisperings. Okay, so ready? Go. Okay, the timer is going off, so please stop where you are. Oh, please stop. Okay. Speaker number 2. Your role is extremely weird. Normally, if you had listened to someone telling for a full minute about things that have made their life difficult, you would show that you have been listening. But do not do that. So this is not a social event. You are going to start fresh. Pretend you are the first speaker and that nothing has been said. Do not empathize, echo, piggyback, or show that you have heard anything the first person has said. This is your minute. Please tell your talking partner about one or more of your experiences of having unearned disadvantage in the world. You did not ask for it. It is not your fault. It is not a matter of blame, shame, or guilt, but it has made your life harder for you in some ways. It could include many things I've already mentioned or others like hair or body type or being too short or tall or having a certain kind of voice or your gender, race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, class, your parents' reputation, your neighbors, your siblings and relatives, and so on. So I'm going to start the minute and go ahead. Okay, the alarm is going off. That minute goes fast. Now we go on to the second part of the exercise. As you may have guessed, the second part is an opportunity to share some of your experiences of unearned advantage. Unearned advantage is privilege that was given to you arbitrarily. It is not a matter of blame, shame, or guilt, but it has helped you out and made life easier for you in some ways. It can have to do with any of the factors that created disadvantages to some people, but in this case, you are on the lucky side. You are talking about circumstances that helped you. Speaker number 1, please tell your talking partner about one or more ways that you have had unearned advantage in your life as a function of your race, class, gender, or anything else that has helped you through no virtue of your own. Okay, take your minute. Okay, time is up. Even if you were about to say what your partner has said, start fresh and speak from your own experience. Speaker number 2. Please tell your partner about your unearned advantage. To highlight the subtlety and the complexity of privilege, here I like to give several new and different examples of unearned advantage related to living in the United States. These include coming to expect hot and cold running water, which is not available to most people on the face of the earth, having a currency that buys a lot of goods from other places in the world, or having your nation's language spoken in virtually all airports in the world. So speaker number 2, you can have your minute. Okay, time is up. Please stop talking. I know it can feel brutal to be cut off after 60 seconds, especially when you're talking about difficult things. The author of this activity, Peggy McIntosh, refers to this aspect of the exercise as the autocratic administration of time in the service of democratic distribution of time. Abrupt though it may feel, the reality is that time is not democratically distributed in the personal lives of everyone or professional locations. So talkers must talk less and listen more. People who usually do not get to talk if they like. And since each person is speaking about their own experience, they cannot be questioned. This is their experience and something on which they are the sole authority. So thank you very much for participating in that brief activity that really illustrates privilege, which is one of the many areas that we cover in our Safe Zone training.
So a couple of years ago, Stacey presented the results of her research about campus climate to various offices on campus, including the Faculty Senate. And Faculty Senate were very interested and said, what can we do? And one of the things that was suggested was, well, Safe Zone is a place that would love some more support. So in response to that, Stacey and I put together a proposal that was pretty detailed, that said what our vision was, and also put forward a budget and some other details. So our vision for ETSU is based on that document that we prepared. And I've got them all up there, good. Okay. So to integrate Safe Zone into the ETSU community, we have a dream that we have trained faculty and staff in every department and every administrative area. There's no department on campus, no administrative area where there isn't somebody who's Safe Zone trained. We love to be able to develop and implement a 55-minute undergraduate module that we can take into the classroom at the request of any faculty member. It's on our to-do list. It's on our dream, our wish list. We want to have a Safe Zone presence at all campus-wide advising and recruiting fairs. We want to be a resource for local colleges in the area. We'd like to provide trainings at satellite campuses as well as just on the ETSU and VA campuses. We would love to have a graduate assistant whom we can mentor and help, and they would then work towards LGBTQ inclusion on the campus. And as we were devising this, we thought that a graduate assistant in psychology would be perfect. Stacey is in the psychology department, and it could tie in nicely. We want to be able to provide an active discussion forum for our Safe Zone members, people who are interested in sharing their experiences, discussing challenges, wanting to know how to develop as an ally. It's a dream, we haven't got there yet. We want to be able to host Safe Zone events. We'd love to be able to host a conference with other Safe Zone programs in colleges around the areas on best practices. We'd love to be able to bring in speakers as Safe Zone speakers. We want to house the resource list for the community and the region. And we'd love to sponsor or host Lavender graduation each semester. Now, when we created this was before Saga had hosted Lavender graduation, and we're delighted to see that happening. If you don't know, Lavender graduation is a celebration for LGBTQ students who are graduating, and it acknowledges the extra challenges that they have faced through no fault of their own. So this is our vision of the future, but we're interested in knowing what your vision is. Is there anything you would like us to add to this list? So we're keen to engage you in a little bit of a discussion or a suggestion session. What's missing from our list? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Of course, you have perfect recall.
I would say as an ally, I would, and some of this might come into the like your sponsored events and speakers, but I would be open to ongoing training. I've gone through the training, but I know as you know, as someone who tries to be aware and challenge my own assumptions, you know how it is. You always come up against something else, and you're like, "Oops,
Oh, yeah.
what have I been
Yeah.
doing all this time?"
Yeah.
Okay, reprogram, but
Uh-huh.
you know, being intentional and having those activities, I think would be
Right.
helpful.
Great.
So a
Thank you.
Refresher course.
Brilliant. Thank you. Hi.
Maybe establish an endowment or a scholarship fund?
I like that. Yeah.
I like that too, just because of, I know outside, we're talking about inside ETSU, what can we do? Outside ETSU, there will still be families that will disown their own children when they learn that they're a part of the LGBT community. And then it's like, where do those people have, you know, where can they go? And ETSU being one of those places would be such a nice thing for Safe Zone. Just being that support that people who are kind of alone can, you know,
Sure.
what they need.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Other ideas? Yes.
I don't know how much this applies based on like the distribution of people who have gone through Safe Zone, but it'd be interesting to see how many of the people in sort of the harder science, so bio, chem, physics, geo, like those professors and those staff members have been through this program, because I think it might be interesting to focus more on certain departments that happen to already go, like had a majority of their staff go through Safe Zone training.
So focused attention on areas. Okay. Thank you.
I don't know exactly, I think this is similar to their comment, but I'm thinking as a person who's done Safe Zone training and been to meetings with Safe Zone trainers, seems like the only people I ever saw at the meetings or participated in training with were women. I don't know if there are any Safe Zone trainers who are men.
There are a few, but I think just one at the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
So it may tie to discipline, but I would also just wonder.
So even get more of the guys involved. Yeah. Good point.
That was a big thing for the GSA at my high school. They wanted to, the president of the GSA wanted to specifically get like a straight male teacher sponsor.
Sure.
Because they felt like it would make everyone kind of view the club as like, not like, oh, that club, and more of like respect it, I guess, and just like learn what we're about.
Right. And this is why, and that's a great point, and this is why allies, it's important that we have straight, cisgender allies, as well as people who are in the LGBT community. Yeah, it's a great point.
That's discriminated against definitely needs allies. I don't think we could do it just as the group.
Yeah. Yes.
I understand that the focus is primarily for faculty staff, but perhaps hosting these for student organizations or having student organizations support and host a Safe Zone in which they can do the work to reach out to faculty, staff, and students as well.
We already do Safe Zone trainings. We haven't talked much about them. We do a few Safe Zone trainings for student groups, but that's a great idea. Yes, thank you. Yes.
I would also say, in conjunction with that, there's a lot of focus on the faculty. I would also advocate more the spreading of awareness of Safe Zone. As an individual student, I didn't even know it existed until I even went to a counseling session and saw it on the door and had to ask what it was.
Yeah.
And I've seen it 2 other times on campus. One when I was going upstairs in the art department and I was on the teacher's door, and then once I've led an organization on campus for the past couple of years, and I've made a point of putting that around the dorm that I was staying at. And that's the only way that other people knew about it.
Thank you. It's a good point. Yeah.
I would even say to build off of that, that as an incoming freshman this year, that one of the only reasons that I knew about it beforehand is because I did a lot of research about LGBT acceptance at various campuses that I was applying to. And I had to do a lot of digging on the ETSU website to find resources.
Yeah.
And so maybe fixing some of those links, just double checking how recent and applicable those are on the list.
Great. Good suggestion. Thank you. Yes.
Perhaps offering safe zone trainings to community groups.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. If you think of other ideas at the end of the presentation, we will be giving you our email addresses, our phone numbers, so just jot them down, and we'd love to hear more from you. But I'd like to move on, and Stacey's going to talk a little bit about the current support and our current achievements.
Alison mentioned some of this in terms of support. We definitely have support through our web presence. So we have a specific site that has been devoted to us so that we can list out all of our trained Safe Zone allies. And our own home departments are quite supportive in terms of offering resources and copies, basic supplies, that sort of a thing. And we also have our individual students that work under us or with us that help with bringing together materials or anything we might need at the last minute. But we certainly could use more support, which we'll get to. We also had a presence at the Tri-Pride Festival that happened a couple weeks ago. We had Safe Zone trainers that agreed to go and sit at the ETSU table and talk about Safe Zone if the person wanted to talk about that. And then we also just reserved table at the fall open houses that are coming up. And so we do have some support for Safe Zone, which is really helpful for us to continue.
We do not currently, no. We do not currently know.
Yeah, that's a great point. So that could also be in our vision, because I think getting more visibility, social media would certainly help with that. So great idea, which also sort of leads into our discussion of limited support at the same time. So this will dovetail into our discussion with you all about the future of Safe Zone and if you have any suggestions for us to increase visibility and support.
So support is limited. The proposal that I mentioned that Stacey and I prepared went to Faculty Senate. Faculty Senate said, we think it goes better with, it was the task force, wasn't it? And it's sort of, the task force is in existence now, and it sort of got lost somewhere in the great abyss that is administration. And this is not uncommon, that we'll try to do something and we just come against a brick wall. We did with open houses. I've tried to get on the open house table before, and I've sent a request saying, you know, Safe Zone would like a presence. And I didn't get anything. And this year what I did was I just called and I said, you know, I should have received a form, and I didn't receive an application form. I run a program in equity and diversity. And I got sent a form, and I don't think they really knew who we were, but we're there now. But I've also tried to get an icon from Identity and had no response to emails, and calls haven't been returned. So there are things like that that are tricky. But we look at time. Stacey and I run this. We get no extra time in our schedules at all. We run it in our free time. In our proposal, we asked for a GA. We asked for course release, because it's actually a lot of work to do this. And part of the reason that some of the things we dream about haven't happened is because there aren't enough hours in the day. We don't have any funding. We run this on zero funding. Our departments help us out. We have a small fund that was passed on from Pat Robertson, that we have a small funded account. It's not growing. It doesn't have anything to come into it. We've just got a little bit of money there.
Have you considered approaching the research development committee with a grant proposal, like a small grant or a major grant? Because it seems like something that could be, worthwhile to apply for one of these grants.
That's an idea I don't think we thought of.
I think that could be an interesting way to get temporary funds. That would assume that we would actually apply for a research grant. So the RDC is specifically for doing research, which isn't outside the realm of what we could do. But it would be a temporary, not sort of overtime annual budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, great
idea. It's a good idea. What we love and we're hoping for and sort of been asking for is that this actually become a funded program within the university, that we don't have to just give people a little laminated symbol, that we can actually have a really honest-to-goodness sticker that you can put on your door, that maybe we can give people lapel pins, that when we do open house, we've got some swag to give away. So all those sorts of things that take money. It's not a lot of money we need, but we'd just like some institutional support. And it's not that we've not got people who are supportive. It's just that when you get down to the bottom of it, there's nobody that says, yes, this program deserves some support from the big pot of money that is the university. So those are some of the challenges that we're facing. But of course, our discussion then is how to get around those challenges, how to move forward, and how to overcome the challenges and make our dream a reality. So we've had a couple of suggestions already. We're really interested to know what some of your ideas might be, things we may not have thought about. How do we overcome those challenges? How do we move forward to make Safe Zone more evident, more public? And I would just add, another challenge, which is something that sort of hovers in the background, almost unsaid, is that we know what happened on other campuses when somebody's seen what they're doing for LGBTQ populations and they're not happy and funding gets lost or programs gets closed down. So I think that also colors us a little bit to be a little bit timid about pushing forward. And it shouldn't do. But I think that sometimes it does. So let's open the floor. And what are some of your ideas to help us? Because we'd really love to hear from you.
Well, you said that you did a mentorship with the counseling for the psychology department, or trying to find a mentor for a graduate student in psychology?
We would love to have a graduate student given to us to be able to mentor. That's the goal, yeah.
Or would you try to branch out to other graduate students in other programs such as social work or master's in counseling?
I think we would be open to that. It's the idea of really wanting funding in order to fund a graduate assistant. So I'm in psychology, so it sort of made sense in that way, but it doesn't mean that they would have to be from psychology.
Sort of back to my point about, starting a social media presence, and if you faculty were aware of the Facebook page or whatever, they could join it, share it. This wasn't actually, I wasn't aware of this until very recently. So, and social media is a way to do it without a lot of cost in terms of, but also possibly doing a crowdsourcing campaign to just get things off the ground a little bit more, where people can contribute, like a Kickstarter or something, and then maybe as it has more presence, the university would start to recognize it more and be willing to contribute once it has, sort of showing community support and presence and visibility.
Yeah, thank you.
I know that Eastman and Kingsport, I live there, and they did a lot of things with the prom parade and stuff recently. So maybe you could branch out to them, because they always do scholarships and stuff like that for local students. They're willing, probably in engineering departments and stuff like that, but it'd be a start to help fund for graduate students.
It's a great idea, thank you. Yeah, this at the back.
So I have a thought, and forgive me if you already do some of this.
Sure.
But thinking of it like an overall structure where you have obviously you two that are leading the charge in some ways, and I don't know how many other people are really helping navigate all the other little things that have to happen to get people out. But if you have a core group and there were projects that you could come up with at the start of each semester, whether it be a slightly bigger ongoing one or lots of little ones, you could just send it out to all of in the safe zone? Like, you've already mentioned a couple things, I'm like, oh, well, I can help with that. I can't necessarily be like, oh, we all have lots and lots of things.
Yes.
But I could help with little things sporadically, so if I knew of a list of like, oh, well, this just meant that I need to make a flyer, or the something along those lines, I mean, you might, that might just be a way to help not only spread the
Right.
word more, but then engage more people that could become.
That's
You know,
a really great
That's
idea.
great, and we did find how responsive the Safe Zone community was when we needed somebody to staff the tables, because admissions had said for the Tri-Pride, we'll give you the table, we'll give you the stuff, but we can't staff it. And so my colleague who was trying to persuade them said to me, Alison, how are we going to do this? And I said, I know, I'm going to just email Safe Zone. And we had, 3 people at a time all through. So that's a great reminder to us, and it's a really good idea. Thank you.
And we do have a list that was generated by our facilitators that met at the end of spring semester, and so we have a to-do list.
Yes. But we'll be sending out to Safe Zone members, yes.
And my eye keeps falling to the no budget and financial support and limited institutional support, and so I'm thinking, if equity and diversity, and we've kind of talked about this before a little bit on the task force, if equity and diversity were part of our requirement as an institution for tenure, promotion, and research requirements, then we would need a wing to be able to provide support and training. And so if it were institutionalized as a tenure and promotion requirement, then it seems like that there would also need to be something tied to it to help support faculty members to gain that distinction on their faculty activity reports and their tenure and promotion documents. And I wonder if that would be a path for getting not only greater institutional validation, but actually a budget to go along with it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I will say that, I envision, as Alison mentioned, training people from all the departments and staff departments and whatever, but I also recognize that we probably don't want every single person to say that they're Safe Zone trained because it might not be real or meaningful. And so I think, just to clarify, it is a voluntary thing, and so we want to make sure that our allies are actual allies. But that said, I think there could be ways to certainly make it more institutionalized, like you're talking about.
So that it would be the tenure and promotion requirement would be equity and diversity. People
Right.
could reach that in multiple ways, so this would still be volunteer. And people
Right.
would elect. So we wouldn't have the icon on the door somewhere where it would not be safe.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yes.
I think it would be interesting to maybe tie it into potentially the new faculty and staff onboarding process. That even if it's just a mention that this is an option for you for training, that will make our students and the rest of campus feel much more welcome. If this is something you're interested in, here are the first couple of trainings in the semester.
Great. Yeah.
So I'm in the process of completing maybe a dozen online trainings that are required every few years. So I started it yesterday, and the number one document, 112 slides, I think, is on equity and diversity, which makes me think that the university on paper is saying they support this, but I wonder how many people in upper administration have gone through Safe Zone training and have the signage on their doors. And I'm hesitant to say it, make it be a requirement, but it seems to be a certain level of disconnect. It seems like undergraduate advisors should have this training. It seems like everybody in administration should have this awareness and should be able to put their money where their mouth is, or their money where their required training for the rest of us is.
Certainly an area that we can focus on. I know some of you are having to go, so did you put the one slide with our emails up there? Okay, so if you have other ideas, do please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you. We'll be having more Safe Zone trainings coming up, and there'll be announcements coming out. I think the plan is to have one early November. So if you're interested, watch out for that. And a student training as well we've got in the works. So there'll be announcements coming out for that.
And I'm going to Sevierville
to give a safe zone.
That's right. So we've got out onto one of our satellite campuses. So things are moving forward, and we're very excited about them. I don't want you to think as ending on a discussion about how do we overcome the challenges, that we're not a strong and vibrant organization, but we want to become stronger and more vibrant. And so thank you very much for your attention today, and we'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.